Janet, sorry, I noticed in your book that you almost seem to bend over backwards to say nice things about religions, to sort of draw the reader in before you get the punch in, so they're coming towards you. I mean, was that a strategic move on your part, or do you, perhaps I could ask it this way, as you did the research for the book, did you become more and more annoyed by what you discover, and did your initial sympathy for religion kind of evaporate?
Well, initially, I had no idea what I was getting into. I was just completely bowled over by some of the things that I learned about what people out there actually believe, let alone what they're training their children on. Unfortunately, there are not enough studies that have been done to actually show how the teaching of faith affects children. We know that in extremes, it's very harmful. In cults, for example, we know that conservative Protestant Christians use spanking, as we call it in the United States. Beating other people is another word for it. That they use it more often than any religious group. What has not been fully studied is just how it does harm children, especially psychologically. I did interview many people, and some of them told me wonderful stories about growing up in religious households. And I think that if we're going to, on one hand, say, well, religion can be used to harm children, I think that it's also worth looking at, can it be used to help them? I felt that it was then my call to try to differentiate here. When is a religious upbringing harmful? And so that's what led to my conclusion about religious authoritarianism. But I think if you're going to get into discussions with people about any of this, of course, especially if you're talking to someone who is a believer, they're first going to accuse you of just wanting to stab at religion. To get around that, to come at this with a solid background, a solid ammunition, which we can't really find in a lot of studies, it's important that we understand just what is, for example, psychological abuse. There are 4 clinically accepted forms: terrorizing, spurning, exploiting, and isolating. And then there are 2 that have to do with neglect. Once you understand just how do we define something like physical abuse, when we define something like psychological abuse, you can then quite easily determine how it manifests itself in a religious setting.